Alrighty, folks. Welcome to the Citizen Central podcast. I am your host, Space Tomato, and we're back with you for another month to chat about Star Citizen. So, this podcast is a little different from our launch sequence, our weekly show. This one is a bit more about tackling some of the big topics in Star Citizen and what the community is talking about at the time. And I think everybody has a pretty good understanding of what's going on with the community at the time of filming. This one's going to sound a little bit sensational, probably the title, probably the thumbnail, but I promise you this is about tackling some thoughts, some opinions, and some discussions I think we should have that a lot of players might not have been able to have for years now. Star Citizen has been a interesting project. It's had its moments, and some context might help with understanding what's going on right now. So I thought I'd bring a few really cool people from around the community who've been making some videos covering the game. No, it's you. Don't look around. It's you. Yeah, right there. And we're going to have that discussion here on stream or on the podcast if you're watching live or if you're watching after the fact. So thank you for joining us. Let's throw it over to our guests for today. Our first is everybody's favorite documentarian, the ship reviewian, the location tourer, Farrister. Thanks for joining us, man. How you doing?
Thank you. Happy to be here. I like the idea of documentarian, and I think that's the first time I've been called cool.
We're going with all the compliments today, dude. How's it going? Is it good? You liking it? Is it working?
Good, yeah. Looking forward to this discussion.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for joining me. MrKraken, my friend, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me amongst more well-known creators from Star Citizen.
Well,
and not just some old dude with a beard hiding in a corner.
I mean, if you don't know MrKraken's content, check it out. It's great testing stuff. It'll show you what's going on with the game and kind of the important bits to know. I think about you do like PTU stuff as well, right? That's actually
mainly bug hunting.
Yeah, you started out as kind of issue council bug hunting, and then you started making videos.
Yeah,
cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us today for this. Looking forward to your opinions. Foxy Loxy, my friend, how are you doing?
Hey, good, thank you. Thanks for inviting me again. This time I cannot reach out to you or postpone.
Been poking Foxy Loxy for a cool minute.
So thanks for having me here.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for jumping in. And Astro Mani, you as well. Thank you for coming in.
Hello. Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It's always great to grow the community and meet others and just do what we can for the game.
Yeah. Astro Mani actually had me on his own show, and we talked a little bit about the game, and I appreciated that because I don't get to go on to other shows that much. But that was good times, and glad to have you on our own to talk a little bit more about our opinions. So there's your selection, folks, and throughout the episode, you're going to be able to find their social media stuff drop throughout the chat. Go check them out. Specifically, if you like their stuff, go and see more of their videos, their streams. If you like their opinions, please give them a click. But we know you're here for some conversation, so let's jump right into it. First, I want to know from each of you, because we got to set up some of the context here, right? Like I said, Star Citizen has people from all different types of gaming and different time periods. Some people joined in 2012. Some people joined in 2025, and both of those people are still playing an unfinished game. But your view of that might differ based on what you've experienced or when you joined. So I'll throw it to each of you. Whoever wants to jump in first, how long you been playing Star Citizen, and when did you start making content on it?
Who wants to go first?
You want to go first? I can go first.
I'll go first because I'm probably the newest one.
All right.
I think out of at least our group here, I've been playing for 2 years, just about right on the cusp of 2 years. I think everyone else here has probably been playing a little bit longer than that in this group. But yeah, that's. I mean, was there more that we wanted to talk about than just the 2 years? Or
yeah, so you've been playing for 2 years, and when did you start making videos or streaming?
Oh, okay. So yeah. So I started playing Star Citizen probably end of February of 2023, which, like I said, just about 2 years. And then I started making content, I think was April, the end of April. So it was wasn't too long after I started playing, and
Okay.
it just happened, and then it started snowballing, and then one thing led to another, and here we are today.
Cool. Cool. All right. Foxy Loxy, let's go with you next.
I start playing Star Citizen, I think is 3.16. I remember there was a wipe. I don't know. I think 4 years, 5 years, 3, 4, 5. I'm not so sure, but I know it's 3.16 that I start playing Star Citizen.
Okay.
And I
And-
start making content, I think is just over 2 years.
Okay.
It was 2 Christmas, I remember. I started one Christmas with the IAE. It's when I started.
All right. Why?
That's a
2
good
years.
point. I started at the end of 3.17, right at the very beginning of 3.18, because that might matter.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Right at the very beginning of
Masochist, man.
3.18 is when I started.
Best time to
You
start playing.
didn't jump into a game. You
Yeah.
jumped into a login queue. That's rough.
Yeah.
Dude. All right. So then a question for both of you. Why did you start making content?
I guess I'll go
Either-
first.
yeah.
I started making. I love gaming. Gaming's always been my life, and I've always sort of wanted to make content. I've always actually was making content prior to Star Citizen. I played everything under the sun. I still play everything under the sun, but I was streaming and making YouTube content from things like Kingdom Hearts to Monster Hunter World when Monster Hunter World came out 5 years ago or 6 years ago. So I've always been sort of trying to dabbling in content, but it was not until Star Citizen that it took off.
Okay.
But
And
I just love gaming.
Foxy, how about you?
I think 2 years ago, when my wife and I went through a hard time, so I was at home taking care of her. Then I got nothing else to do, so I started making content. And that's the time that I took her game name. So Foxy Loxy is her game name.
Dude, that's the best origin story. Oh,
Yeah,
man.
and I started making content. She joined me for sometimes, and now she. In the beginning, I thought she can play with me together and then do content together, but because because Star Citizen is Star Citizen, so it scared her off in the first day, and yeah, I still invite her to join me sometimes. I have to do a lot of persuasion and work and negotiation. Yeah, so
Just a whole other job trying to convince someone to play it with you. Can I ask,
exactly.
is your logo somebody free falling in Star Citizen?
It's me. One time I free fell through the planet, and then
Okay.
right in the center of the sun, and I just position myself like this. It's cool. This is nice.
Yeah, it looks like
Just-
that cape, just like flying
I
up.
just use it because this is the perfect demonstration for Star Citizen. You playing this
Sure.
game, it's a free fall.
You got to be ready for it. Mr.
Yeah.
Kraken, how about yourself? How long you been playing the game, and how about making content for it?
So I've been following the game since Kickstarter.
Okay.
However, I have been burned by many Kickstarters, so I thought it was a scam for many years. And then I finally started playing in 2018. So 3.1 was my introduction to Star Citizen proper.
Okay.
I think I had a Mustang, and then my friend who got me into Star Citizen in the first place went no. And got me an upgrade to something. I can't remember what it was. Either an Aurora, and then that was horrible. And I ended up with an Avenger when 3.2, I think the Avenger came with. Can't remember
Yeah,
now.
I think it got a rework.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it has.
But yeah. So that's how long I've been actively following. And content wise, last year was when I started making content. Mainly just because the whole point of why I started the channel was straight to the point videos. So if a video that I'd seen elsewhere had been a 10-minute long slog and it could fit into a short, I'd make it, but still communicate the same information. Because a lot of people like to, record their stream footage, whereas I prefer to do scripted, tight, don't need to worry about YouTube monetization or anything like that.
Mhm.
That's not enabled, so I just make it as long or as short as it needs to be. And
Nice.
hopefully it works for people.
And you focus on trying to just help people figure out how to work the game.
Pretty much. I'm a salvage main. That's when I really started playing, was when I got my vulture
Okay.
finally in game.
Cool.
And salvage is my main loot.
I'm going to be interested in hearing what you have to say about both the 3.0 era of time launch and instability and also the new fortune. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Farrister, how about yourself? How long you been playing and how long you been making content?
So I thought I was quite late to the party on Star Citizen, but compared to this group, I'm an old man. So I started playing at the back half of 2014. So that was patch 0.85, just after Arena Commander was launched, so you could actually fly your ships rather than see them in the hangar. And I started making Star Citizen videos in early 2020. So I've been playing for 10 years and making videos for 5 years now.
Okay. Awesome. Cool, guys. Well, thank you so much for giving us some of the context of why you've been playing, or rather how long you've been playing. Let's talk about, I guess, the why. A lot of you have been playing a game that many people will say is rather hard to play. And even in the last 2 months, they've had some struggles with 4.0 coming out. Why have you been sticking with the game despite its problems or its glitches or whatever for so long? Astro Mani, you go ahead and open up.
Well, I like this I like this question of why I'm still playing, why we're still playing, why I hope a lot of people are still playing. Because this is my personal opinion. I think this is the greatest game in the world. It is the best game in the world on the market, the biggest, the most complex. It just doesn't work, right? But it is the best. It just doesn't work. And so we just keep banging our head, because if you try to go and play anything else, you're like, man, I could be playing Star Citizen right now if you go and play anything else.
But then I also think that when I'm playing Star Citizen, I'm like,
Exactly.
man, I could be playing. It's kind of, you got that that feeling. I think that cuts to the core though. Is like you play Star Citizen and it's not fun, or rather, it's not working. But also, you're trying to get to the features that do work because you can't find those features elsewhere.
Right.
That's kind of why I played Anthem for a little while after it came out. Like, Anthem came out and it did not fit what it was supposed to be. But man, no other game could do flying around shooting things quite like that. So like, while I wasn't into the game for like the story and stuff, I definitely was going back to it because it hit a feeling that no other game really did, despite eventually I dropped it. But that's a good point.
Anthem was cool.
That game could have been so awesome. Let's go out of order. MrKraken, how about yourself? Why have you been, you've been around for a good while, and you originally thought it was a scam. Why have you not turned back towards that thinking and stuck with it?
Because there's actually something tangible. Granted, it's not in an ideal state, but it's there. It's vaguely playable. But I am one of those people that, just to bring back to pre-show what we were talking about, being a Rust player has increased my level of zen when it comes to games. If a game is, that abusive relationship sort of thing, as Star Citizen quite often is, then I will just step away for a little bit, skip over the patch cycles. I'll still jump on PTU, issue cancel, things like that, but I won't make it my focus or my stress. I'll just step away, go and play something else, come back around. I've just literally spent...
Sounds very normal.
5 to 6 months disappeared completely from Star Citizen, other than having certain Spectrum chats open, like Evocati chat, looking on Issue Council, keeping my own little database up to date, things like that.
Mhm.
And that's, I mean, the reason I keep coming back is because when it is a game, it's going to be great. At the moment, yeah, we've just had brand new tech solution come in, so we're back in that cycle. It'll take a few months for it to at least get what I would say playable. Right now, it's a bit rough. That's the reality of it. Would I recommend someone start playing Star Citizen right now? No. I tell them to check it out, but not start playing or start committing to it.
Yeah.
Right at the start of a new tech cycle, like at the start of 3.18, when the Vulture came out, and that was the most painful time for me. Because it just got salvaging.
Yeah. All right. Captain Foxy Loxy, what about you? Why you been playing?
I think I'm insane, and I like to torture myself.
That's that's
a short answer.
Gotta be honest, man.
The long answer is, I think it's the ships, the beauty, and the people. Well, that's even shorter answer. Because there is no other game that can give you this kind of a personal interaction with your ship, with your ships.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's even though it's digital, it's pixel. But all other games, for example, like I don't say other games are not good, but I'm just, for example, like Starfield or some other game, you have their ships and stuff, but it don't feel like an asset to you. In Star Citizen, your ship feels like an asset to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and every time you want your ship, you can pull it out and then play with it and interact with it and do things with it.
Yeah.
Number one. So number two is the beauty of Star Citizen. Anywhere you turn, there's full of beauty. Of course, beauty has a cost, full of bugs as well. Yeah, that's why you're torturing yourself. You're playing this game. You fell through the planet, but to zoom out, regardless of the bugs, this is such a beautiful game. Yeah, the sunset, the ocean, the mountains, the dynamic clouds, especially Pyro comes in now. If you can get up your hangar, if you get out of your elevator, if you survive the elevator ride, you can enjoy the beauty in Star Citizen. Just walk to on the ground, you might fall through the planet. And then the last is the most important, the people, because I play with my friends, with my org. You enjoy a lot of good time.
Sorry, your voice is really glitching out. Are you guys hearing that, or is that just me? Is that Discord?
Coming through for
Sounds
me.
great to me.
Okay, cool. Keep going then. It might be on my end. Sorry, Foxy.
Okay, yeah. So the last is most important, the people. You play with your friends. It's an MMO. It's a sandbox game. You can create, at the time, you can create all kinds of fun events and just play creatively. Well, that's a fourth reason. You can be creative about this game.
Yeah.
You can, you can take apart of your ship, reassemble the parts. You can be creative. You can steal NPC ships. You can do a lot of things as long as the game gives you the option to do so.
Yeah.
So those reasons. Yeah.
Sorry to the everybody who's listening. That's probably on my end. It's probably an internet thing, as always. Something's gonna go wrong. It never doesn't. But Foxy Loxy has some good points. The ability to have basically a home that can move. Like you can have homes in games. You can build a home. You can craft some stuff and like have this place that feels like your own. But being able to move that around into space, different planets, different cities, different moons. That's super nice. And the fact that it's so interactive, I think even now, they're really, really basic compared to what they're supposed to be. We're supposed to have components. We're supposed to be able to decorate. We're supposed to be able to be pulling things on and off and like changing the paints and all that kind of stuff. That's probably one of the best parts of anything they've ever promised with this game. That's a really good point, man. And then, the creativity is good too. I think we were just talking with Kai Zamet on the launch sequence recently, and he asked, can you pirate people? And I was like, yeah, you can just steal stuff. And he was like, dude, it's wild. You can just like pick things to do. and and pursue them as long as the game allows you to. That's the interesting thing, is it's like they create these possibilities in the game that maybe would be locked away behind rules and something else, but then the game itself breaks so much that you can't do them, which is where another game might succeed.
Yeah.
Farrister, how about you? Why have you been playing this whole time?
Yeah, so I think I would probably say I haven't been playing this whole time. So I think most Star Citizen players have felt the need to take a break at some point. So I think for me the question is, why do I keep coming back rather than why am I keeping on playing? I think for me, I definitely agree with a lot of what's been said.
Farrister, I'm really sorry. I have to cut you off real quick. I need to disconnect from Discord and come back in because I think there's something wrong with my connection that's causing all this. So if everybody could just give us maybe like 30 seconds, I got to relaunch the program and make sure that we are doing better than we just were. All right, Farrister, can you go ahead and give me another try?
Oh, is that any better?
It is better. Thank you.
And yes, so that's my answer to the question.
We missed the whole thing.
So I think I was saying, rather than why do we keep playing, I think most Star Citizen players have at some point stopped playing the game. So I think for me, it's more about why do I keep coming back to the game? And I think a lot of what has been said really resonates with me. So I agree with Voxuloxy about the community. I think particularly as content creators, we also have that audience, which can often encourage us to keep on playing as well. And I'm also fortunate to be part of an org filled with great people. And sometimes that really, even when times are rough, being amongst kind of great people encourages you. I do agree with what you were just saying as well. There is a lot of variety in this game. So you talked about the creativity. I mean, Star Citizen is a space sim, a ground sim, a salvage game, a mining game, a hauling game. And I think the fact that it has so much to offer means that even as people's interests change, there might be something in Star Citizen that caters to that. You know, I talked in the introduction, I started flying dogfighting 10 years ago, didn't ever expect to do any mining at all. I was a young man, I was all about the high adrenaline dogfighting, whereas now I've got older, my preferences have changed, but Star Citizen still caters to those preferences. So I think it's just the scope of what you can do in the game that keeps me coming back, as well as the people. I do agree with MrKraken. It is in a rough state right now. But to be fair, kind of you see the peaks and troughs in that. I've seen the rough times and I've seen some smoother times. And to be fair, Star Citizen is quite open about being early access. It's probably the longest early access title I've played, but it is, very over. Every time you log in, you have to acknowledge this is still in an alpha. And to be fair, it seems like the practice in the industry right now is when a game is released, it's in early access, and regularly it doesn't work. We were talking about Cyberpunk 2077 earlier. I remember how rough that was on launch, and it's been the same for so many early access launches. So some of it might just be this is the norm for video games now. When they launch in a rough state.
The general industry is just not super pleasing with the way games launch right now. But there are still a lot of good games that come out pretty standard. I mean, I think it's mainly when you get into the AAA launches where things start to be rough, which is funny. Like, you'd think that they're the ones who are doing the best, but I feel like it's the AAA launches that generally fall the shortest. It might just be because they're getting the most attention, though. But good point. And sorry, I was doing a little bit of figuring out this problem on the side here during that, but I appreciate that you have acknowledged that you weren't necessarily playing the whole time. I think a lot of people think that everybody who's into Star Citizen is just constantly bashing their head against playing it. But like both you and Kraken have said, and I think everybody tends to show at some point, it's okay to take steps away. Like, it's not the only game in the world. 4.0 came out, and it was in a rough state. And then 4.0.1 came out, and it's also in a rough state. Now, during 4.0, we had another patch running in parallel, which you guys mentioned. And that was because they knew 4.0 wasn't going to be great. But after a month and releasing 4.0.1, we're actually seeing now that the free fly, which would normally be scheduled to occur right now during the Red Festival, has been canceled. I don't think they've ever canceled a free fly before. What are your thoughts?
Right move. 100% the right move. And I think you're right. It is unprecedented for them to cancel a free fly. Because I tried looking for any other time that it happened this morning and couldn't find any mention of such a big thing for Star Citizen being cancelled. But it needed to happen with the state of 401. They needed to do something, and I think they've done the right thing by putting a stop to that. Or delay.
I was going to say, do you think they should have delayed it or just wait until the next free fly?
I think they've probably delayed it, although saying that we've got Invictus coming up pretty close, but they might end up doing the free fly over Stella Fortuna, or I would say more, but but maybe Stella Fortuna, slide it to March and have another one in May.
We usually have something in March, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea. Yeah. What they've done, I think it's good all around. I think there's an interesting underneath layer to pick at there, but on the surface layer, I think it's good for everybody. It looks good on CIG by saying, okay, we can't handle this right now, or we don't want to show this more out to the public because it's just not in a good state. We're taking responsibility. And then it's also good for the people who are playing Star Citizen who are like, oh, I hate Free Fly Elite. There's so many players playing the game and it's jogging down and screwing my game up. So I think all in all, on the surface level, it looks really good. It's making everybody happy, which is weird that CIG is actually doing something that is kind of making everybody happy. So, but on the underneath layer, it's kind of a bit like scary because they did something so drastic that they normally don't do.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think my take on the free flies is generally I agree with Astro. I think free flies are very unpopular amongst the player base. The people that play the game generally, I think, don't like the free flies because it brings in all of the other people and impacts performance. But I think free flies are very important for the game and the health of the game because they clearly drive sales to new players and get new blood into the game. So I think this was always going to be a popular decision for the players because my experience is players don't like the free fly. But what is the impact on that on getting new blood into the game? And I think it says a lot if the whole response to this is actually our game is in such a rough state right now that we don't want to put it out there for new players to come in. I think it does say a lot. So I think it's probably been a difficult decision. I think it's probably the right decision because you wouldn't want new players coming into Star Citizen and experiencing this. But my worry is how we got to this point. Like, we always knew that 4.0 was going to be rough. That's why it was launched alongside 3.24, but we're still charging ahead with it.
Yeah, interesting point.
Well,
do you think
I think they have to charge ahead.
Yeah. Do you think that they shouldn't be doing what they're the current strategy? What would you say is the best strategy going forward from here? That's for Farrister.
Well, I think they've kind of backed themselves into a corner by dismantling 3.24. I think it's a difficult one, but yeah, I would have kept it running and running properly, like giving it the server resources that it needed. Because 3.23, 3.24 was fairly stable. Like, it wasn't perfect. There were still issues, and a lot of those issues have kind of persisted, but it was generally quite playable. 4.0 is much less so. I think if you had that and you had them side by side, it's probably a lot more expensive to do it that way. And this is probably why we're in the stage that we're at now. But at least you could then say, look, 4.0 is still in preview or testing or whatever you want to call it. If you want the smooth experience, you go to 3.24. Now, if somebody wants the smooth experience, you just got to wait. There is no real option there. And I think optically that might have been a better way to do it. And that's what I thought they were going to do when they said 4.0 isn't ready, but we're releasing it out there, but 3.24 is there. That's what I thought was going to happen, but it's not how it worked out.
So they've backed themselves into a corner. Like, they are at a point where they got to get things fixed, but they're in a tough position. Squadron's not coming out. Server meshing just happened, and 4.0 is unstable. They are operating pretty much even. We haven't gotten the financials yet, so we don't know what the latest information is. But from what we know, they've mostly been operating pretty much even. So something's got to give, right? They need to fix the game, because if you're not having free fly events, then you're not showing that you don't feel confident that the game can show itself for people to buy it. That probably means most people aren't going to buy it, and therefore people aren't coming in. So you're not making those new sales, but you do need to get to the game to a point where it can be ready for a free fly to start that back up. In the meantime, you still have to sell ships because you have to fund the company. If you continue to push off those free flies to fix the game, to fund the developers that are fixing the game, you really got to get the game to a playable point where you can start to make that money again, right? So they could find themselves in a tough spot if they can't start getting back to the point where the game is free flyable, for lack of a better word. Do you think that signifies a spiral of some sort? Somebody told me this is the beginning of their spiral. Do you think this could show the beginning of a bad trend or a continuation of a bad trend, or do you think they're just having some early struggles after 4.0?
I don't think it's the start of a downward trend or, the doom spiral. But I have a feeling there were some very strong discussions between different heads of department over the past couple of weeks. And on the one hand, one might have won and 4.0.1 went onto the live channel instead of staying on preview. But they first went, okay, we'll hold off the free fly and get some hot fixing done. Then there was another conversation. Okay, that's it. We're cancelling the free fly. Because they weren't confident. They knew that there was going to be issues, but they didn't want to admit defeat. And then they admitted defeat.
Mm-hmm.
After a few days of seeing how things were panning out.
I think that's important.
I still think it's a good move. Yeah.
That they're admitting things. I think the situation here of them canceling and taking responsibility is something that they're doing, saying we really are trying to get this to work. Like, that's something. I mean, this is going back into a little bit of the end of last year and all of 4.0, and not currently right now, right this second. But this is just my opinion. I feel like they have been working harder than they've ever worked before. At least from, like we talked about, them being communicative or communicating with us and showing what they're working on, like a new patch in the PTU every day, new things they're fixing every day. They're talking and being voiced every single day. They're taking responsibility and they're showing that they're putting in work. It's not getting maybe the results people are expecting, but it takes time. And it's, at least from my point of view, it really looks like they're trying, because I'm looking at it every couple of hours. There's a new post. Oh, we're working on this. We've done this. We're doing that. We're doing this. So.
I think the problem is also people keep looking at CIG as a conglomerate when there are hundreds of devs that are like, many of the people who go into work at CIG are literally just going into their job. Some folks think that every developer has like some agenda to do some specific thing with some feature, or push some certain feature, or do some certain thing. And it's like, a lot of these are just people who are going in, doing their coding, and then going home. And many of them are passionate to however much extent. Some people don't really care. Some people really care that the game is more playable and more good. And unfortunately, it ends up coming down to the decision makers. That means whether or not the players actually see it. Do you think that this kind of slow rollout of stability is a bad sign for the rest of the year, when it was kind of touted as being playability focused. A lot of people are looking at this and being like, hey, the first update you put out is just as broken. What happened to playability? Foxy Loxy, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one.
First of all, I think Free Fly, whether they cancel or not, the game is still in a mess. It's broken, like many people say. So I would wish that CH has kept Free Fly instead of canceling it, because it's gonna be quite unplayable for a lot of people anyway. And besides, we've had Free Fly experiences in the past that the game is broken, and we've been through 3.18. So what else could be worse? That's just my opinion.
Is this not worse than 3.18 in your opinion?
At least 3.18, you can madly play the menuing game. Right now, you can just play the elevator game. But
so you get to the elevator this time.
Exactly. But I think what boils down is I think we have to educate people to realize that you cannot treat this as any other game. This is a very special game. You get the game experience by fighting the bugs, by all this, but you get the whole shebang of a total development process of the game. You play and develop together with the developers. They work hard every day. So new players think, oh, this is the game I want to enjoy, I want to play, I want to have fun, I don't want to have bugs. If you really want to play for this kind of game, you can't really expect Star Citizen can give you that kind of experience. So I think we have to tell people, educate people, especially new players, say, hey, this is still a developing game. You have to experience bugs and report it. So one of the major responsibility for us is to report it whatever you can. You should constantly report videos or just tell people, so to help the game get better. The game is getting worse? No, it's always worse. It's always bad. In the different degrees, just like the waves. One wave goes down and then the other waves comes up. But eventually, in the long run, the game is moving forward. Like a couple months ago, we don't even have Pyro. Now we can enjoy Pyro, this beautiful new system. But come with it is a lot of bugs, a lot of problems, and a lot of arguments why this is a lawless system, why you release this lawless system first. When people in chat saying, okay, PvP is bannable in Pyro, to the point. So it doesn't matter all this mess, but this is the whole shebang that we're getting, which is called Star Citizen. You play this game, you have to take it. Just like no one is perfect, no single person is perfect in life. We all have a certain amount of problems. You just have to live with it. And then make the best effort to make the best game that we can together with the developer. So Star Citizen is going to be okay. It's always okay. It's always like this, but it's going to be better. It's just me. I have this high hope for it.
You don't think this is different this time?
I don't think this is going to be different. This is just, we're going to have more features. We're going to have resource management, engineering. Comes with it is going to be more bugs. So when CIG sit down to fix certain bugs, everything is connected. It's quite difficult. I don't know any development process in it, but in my field, when I change something, everything is connected. So same thing as game development. If you change, for example, elevator bug, if you want to completely fix it, I think a lot of things is going to have to change. Mm-hmm. So it's not that simple like people saying. So yesterday I just found out that the Hercules landing gear bug back again. Remember they fixed that? Some people are so happy, says, oh, CIG finally did its job. Yeah. But it's unfixed again. And I'm not surprised. Just have to run with it for the time being.
Foxy Loxy raises a really good point here, right? This is the challenge with having a year that is a stability year. So for me, Star Citizen has always been janky, right? There has always been a different level of jank. If this year is going to be the stability year, almost the the price of that is you can't release loads and loads of new features. You can't be moving the game forward. You can't be adding new gameplay loops because by its very nature, doing that will introduce bugs. So for me, the question is going to be, if CIG wanted to make this the stability year, if they wanted to spend a whole year fixing things and kind of stopping the jank, I'm pretty confident they could do that. Where I'm less confident is, can they do that and move the game forward? For me, it's probably more of a choice of how much do you say this is going to be the code base for 4.0 and we're just going to focus on fixing things up. That is going to mean don't introduce a load of new stuff that's going to throw up new bugs. So it's going to be interesting to see how much that direction does hold true versus how much they say, actually, we're going to have to slow down introducing new things in order to make it playable. And I do want to agree with something that Stessig said in chat, which is we often hear words with Star Citizen. So we often hear what they're going to do and how it's going to be and what it's going to look like. The key thing here is going to be actions. It's going to be what they can deliver. I think people that have been following the project for a while are much more interested in what do we see rather than what do we hear.
Yeah. And funny enough, they're finally starting to actually show. Anybody who's been here for a while knows that we've been hearing words a lot. I think the most indicative time of that was pre 3.0, when we went an entire year without any content whatsoever. Nothing got given to the players. It was like, imagine if 4.0 had happened, but there was no 324. There was no 323. They just went silent from 322 and then released 4.0 over a year later. But at that time, it was all talk. It was around the verse. They were great. They were like 40 minutes long. They were wonderful and juicy, but we heard it all. We didn't see it. And a lot of the things we heard about during that time are the things that they're finally getting into the game now, which I think is funny because now that those things are finally coming about, the community is boiling, right? Like people are getting a lot more mad about things not moving forward. But if you look at the whole span of time that we've been, we're actually seeing stuff finally be delivered. The resource network got delayed, unfortunately. That kind of sucked, but it came in. The UI systems, while they're still not perfect, finally got their update we were hearing about for way too long of a time. Salvage got delayed for like 6 years, finally got put into the game. And that doesn't mean that they're doing Star Citizen at the top that they can be doing it at, but it's an interesting time that we're at because all of this stuff is kind of coalescing. Server meshing is also kind of happening at the same time, but it's taken so long that none of it is really having the impact it would have before. Like I think Pyro genuinely caused more anger in the community than happiness when it released, which is like, it's ironic.
So yes, so what do you play? I totally agree with you though, everything. So why you play a game? You want to have fun, right? But Star Citizens is a game that you not only play this game, but you also play with hunting bugs. For some people, it's horrible. For some people, it is fun. For a lot of us that's sitting here hunting bugs, talking about bugs, it's somewhat fun. It's painful, but it's fun. It's the thing that like what you said, we are going through the entire process together with this game. It's not like they hand you out with a finished game. What is the fun in the development process, right? And features got delayed, yes, but it will always happen. Later, as the Star Citizen keep developing, we will have features getting delayed as well, or some features getting unexpectedly released, things like that. It's just the process.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I want to, like, if I have friends or players come to the game I want to introduce them to, I would get them ready for this development process together to help the game to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And then enjoy also the community and together, like we're sitting here, and also the friends you play together with. It's no other game can give you that kind of experience, or the community together to help you. other games developer will have certain communities, but will not be acting like this every day, day to day. You interact with each other to play together, to find bugs, to find solutions, workarounds, and talk about features and playability. But one thing I really hope CIG would do is to first get the very basic. First, get everybody who can log in the game. Who because a lot of people are locked off the game for days, weeks, sometimes. So I think that's a very number one thing. I don't know why some people are account locked or shard locked, but that's weird. The thing they really need to get. That's a number one thing, I think. Yeah. Get it fixed. Get every player able to join the game, enjoy the game, and hunt the bugs. Like if you can't log into the game, you can't play the game. Then what is the point?
Bottom line, man. Everybody who buys it should be able to access it. Yeah.
So if anything, we can get to CIG. Tell them to do this first. Stop everything else. Maybe do this first. Get everybody into the game first. Yeah.
There's people
so they can take the journey with us.
Exactly. They cannot take an elevator with us.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Everybody says the game is unplayable, but like that's different for every somebody might like mine a rock and then there's lag and you blow up the rock and it kills you and somebody says, "Oh, the game's unplayable." That's actual unplayability. Like you can't just people can't not log in. That was the big problem with 3.18, and if you're getting an account or shard locked right now, that should be their number one problem to fix. I think their new player experience also needs a lot of help, because we're talking here about free flies and how free flies help with the game itself. But what good is a free fly if the people who are jumping in can't actually do anything? And really, up until recently, that was mostly the case. It's only just started to get a little bit better.
You know, I mean, on that same note, there's the fact that the mission system refactor is half baked, and those little missions like the delivery mission, search, animal control on Hurston, they're all gone and missing, which most new players to the game, and this is just my anecdotal from what I see, they start the game, they go, box mission, grab 3 boxes, take 1 here, 1 here, 1 here.
Mm-hmm.
They're not there.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like that, I think it's silly that we're in a point to where we don't have basic missions. Because especially with the free fly kind of thing, there's a lot of new people coming into the game with 4.0, and they don't have quote unquote easier missions for people to do. So I play the game a lot. Like I'm on the game probably 10 hours, if not more, a day. And I have a lot of new people joining my community on a daily basis. And I do a lot of endgame stuff, or what I would consider endgame stuff, playing contested zones, getting to executive hangar ships. And new players are coming in. They're like, I want to come to the contested zones with you. And it's like, you don't even know how to play the game yet. So, I mean, I want you to come join us, but I can't tell them go learn to fly by doing some delivery missions because they're not there. I can't tell them to go do something in Stanton and Stanton's not working, and they want to come to Pyro because it's the new system, but then they walk out the door and they get shot.
Yeah.
It's
it's rough. It's rough to add the end game system as your second location in the game.
Yeah.
It kind of just, everybody wants to try the new thing, but if 50% of the content in the game is what's supposed to be the end game at some point, people are going to get like a skewed idea. People jump in there, experience gameplay that honestly, I think at this point, Pyro is much easier than it's supposed to be eventually, but it's still more difficult than Stanton. You jump in there thinking it's going to be cool, and then you realize, oh, this is where all the highest difficulty stuff is actually supposed to be. But they don't even tell you that. There's nothing that tells you that, right?
Even in terms of time taken to travel across the system as well.
Yeah.
It's
the
not
ships
even
that can fly there.
What you've actually got to do. The time it takes, the quantum tanks, the drives that you've got, things like that. It's a lot to take in for a new player, and someone, casual Gary who's only got an hour a night can get from one side of Pyro to the other and then have to log off, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. like I feel for the people who do that, play for only an hour, and in that hour they blow up in the middle of space, and it's like, well, there goes my hour.
Yeah, that's rough. Although Pyro has made me so much better about logging on and off from my ship itself, like in the bed. It's really nice. It's worked 100% of the time too. Just waking up, starting the day, and you're right there in your ship. You can just start a mission straight away. It takes like just a couple minutes to get into it. It's pretty cool.
Well, I have friends Sherlocked because of bed logging ships.
Oof.
Because we have different experiences.
I've gotten shard locked, not from the bed logging, but that's not fun, especially when you're in the middle of something good. Let's talk about the release of server meshing itself. It's been out server meshing's been running in Star Citizen for a while now in different situations, but it's been live, like actually tested, for about a month now. Now, like somebody was saying, I think facetiously in chat just recently, server meshing's supposed to fix everything. It came out and not everything is fixed. What the heck's going on? Kraken, what is this? What's happening? Why isn't is CIG done?
This is the thing. It's one of those things that so many, and it's player expectation running away with themselves a lot of the time. People saying, "Oh, when server meshing's in, this, and this will work. It'll be great," and it will be. But as with anything, I'm going to say the magical words. It's iteration 0. It's, on one hand, what we've got now, the static server meshing, is absolutely great for the people who aren't on the dedicated game servers that are failing. So, like right now, MrKraken and Crusader, server error, please wait, quite a lot of the time. Hurston, not so much. ArcCorp, haven't been there. Pyro, I've had one server error all week. But it's removing what a lot of people were seeing with 323 and around there, because you're all on the same server. You all get the server error. But now, only that little portion of the entire shard are getting that problem, which is now why you've got so many varying, "Oh no, it's great for me." Yeah, because you're staying in Pyro.
Yeah. So you got localized issues going on.
Yeah.
That's been a little interesting when you're flying to somebody, you're meeting up with someone and you 30K, or not 30K, but you have a server error and they don't. That's been a nice, I guess it's nice that the whole game itself isn't all freezing up at one time. Anybody
Absolutely.
else on server meshing? Thoughts on why it hasn't really made the game better already?
I think it has made the game better already.
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
Farrister with the hot
I agree.
take.
I agree.
Is it a hot take? I mean, it'd be interesting to see what
I
Astro
don't-
thinks. But like, for me, I remember a time when Star Citizen was like a handful of people flying off of Port Olisar. We are now at a stage where there are hundreds of people that are all flying together in their own different parts of space. And it mostly works. And this is going to be the model for when we get future star systems. And the fact that it is mostly working, I think, is very, very healthy for the game. The fact that you can join friends so much easier when there were those tiny servers. Now it's got hundreds of players. There are probably spots that you can join friends. Yeah. I think that's great. Are there problems? Yes. Are there challenges? Yes. This is Star Citizen. There always have been. But actually, I think the general move to server meshing is, like, I think most of the issues we've got now are kind of ancillary stuff rather than the server meshing itself. But I don't know, Astro, you might feel differently.
No, I agree with you. I think server meshing has made the game a lot better in a lot of ways. Yes, there's still problems. And I mean, again, that's the whole point of Star Citizen. It's always going to have different levels of problems. But server meshing has brought the game to a whole new level. Like, as far as immersiveness and enjoyability and community, anywhere you go, you're running into people left, right, and center. Like, and we're still at a low point to where we're 600 people in a shard, and they want to go way, way higher than that. And it doesn't matter what location you're going to, you're always going to run into somebody right now, and that's fantastic. Sometimes, one of you guys mentioned you're getting a server error all the time if you're in Microtech or in Hurston or somewhere in Stanton, but they only got one server error for the entire time they've been in Pyro. I mean, I spend probably 98% of my time in Pyro now since moving to Pyro after the first week or two of 4.0. And I haven't seen a server error in days. And I play, like I said, 10 plus hours a day, and I haven't seen a server error in days, in weeks even. Sometimes I'll crash the desktop, but the liveliness, anywhere I go, there's people in the stations everywhere, hanging out in corners, doing their own thing, being stuck at the hangars, sure. And just any location you go to, any of the hot spots, and even if you're not going to hotspot, you're trying to be sneaky. You're like, hey, I'm going to go to this far off asteroid. No one's going to be over here. You go there, you get shot in the face by another player because there actually was someone doing the same exact thing you were thinking. I'm going to go in this little hidey hole by myself. No, there's 600 people in the shard. Someone else is thinking about doing the same thing you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think, Astro, you talk in there about you've not had many server errors in Pyro. I mean, I'm probably the exact opposite to you. I probably spend about 98% of my time in Stanton. I've had a few server errors, right? But to be fair, we're at the stage now where what that looks like most of the time is a pop-up comes up saying, server error, please wait. You wait 2 minutes, and then you are right back into the game, exactly where you were, exactly where you were doing. For those that have been playing Star Citizen for a while, they'll remember the 30Ks where you used to get kicked off, kicked back to the menu, and then you came back in and you woke up in your bed on your home planet and you'd lost all of your progress. The fact that even where we have got some of these server errors, in many cases it can recover and let you carry on doing what you're doing. It's an inconvenience, but it's like a couple of minutes in many cases, which is definitely an improvement as well.
Yep.
I have a different experience on that.
I'd like to hear that.
Sometimes when we get server error, it recovers really fast. But there happens few times you keep getting server error one after another. So it will force you to swap server. Once you swap server, you get shard locked. This has happened multiple times. I guess it just I guess we're just unlucky. A lot of my friends had that experience too.
So
and sometimes this.
So it's when crossing between servers?
No, it just in different server. I guess if you're in the server, that server is about to have some really crazy stuff happening. It just keeps server erroring one after another to the point that you have to leave the entire shard. So when that happens, there's nothing you can do, and sometimes you get shard locked. Another experience is sometimes you don't see the server error, but nothing works at all. You can't get into your ship. You can't get off your pilot seat. You can't. There's nothing
I
works.
had that yesterday. Yeah, we couldn't even open doors.
Nothing works. So there's still quite a lot of problems. But in the bigger picture, server meshing has made a lot of added a lot of new players. Yes, but also I think server error also solved a lot of the space combat desync issues, and also the NPCs on the ground is quite active, quite responsive. If there are a lot, like in the contested zone, sometimes this is horrible. It's too many entities. But in a bunker or distribution center mission, you can enjoy a very good PvE, better than before server meshing. So that's some improvements. But it's still in its infancy or teenager stage. It still needs a lot of development.
Yeah.
It will get better. But
yeah. I think again, it feels a lot like 3.0. They in 3.0, the big thing that happened was planets got added. That was like the big switch over from 2.6 to 3.0 was we could finally land on planets. I feel like that's kind of equivalent to the new star system here, but even then, I don't think the new star system has that same novelty. I think that we're seeing the same sort of thing where some things got worse because of this new changeover to new tech. Things like the ability to like stay connected to a server and stuff like that. Some things got a lot better, like the server frame rate, the performance of AI. I won't say a lot better, but better. And just kind of general game function got better. But we're seeing some really big holes where like missions have missed. The shard locking stuff is a really big problem. But server meshing does seem to have allowed the game to start to move forward some more in places that people care about. And what I guess a lot of people are wondering is, if it hasn't made the game better right now, why will it continue to get better from where it is now, as opposed to CIG just being stuck with a very broken server meshed environment? I'll open it up to you guys by saying, obviously we're moving towards dynamic server meshing, but maybe more in the short term, over the next year. We don't know when they might get to that point. Why should people believe that it could get better with the way that server meshing is functioning now and the way that the game is kind of struggling after 4.0?
I think the main problem with trying to convince someone that it's going to get better, if they haven't experienced something like 3.18, it's a hard sell, especially if they are looking at the experience right now. They're treating it as a game, and whether it's playable rather than passable, which is what I often refer it to as. But we know it will improve. It can't get much worse.
You say that. You say that, but there are genuine beliefs that it's only going to look like this now.
I think there's a good point there, which is anyone that's watched Battlestar Galactica or read Peter Pan or whatever, all of this has happened before, and all of this will happen again. We've been through this. 3.18 was awfully rough. Like, they had to rename an entire subpatch to 3.19 just to get away from the association of the number 3.18. So we have been through very rough times. I'm very confident that if the effort is there, that we can get through this as well. In fact, I think we'll probably get through this relatively quickly, because it does seem like all hands are on deck to try and improve this experience. And to be fair, as much as there are a lot of criticisms of the dev posts that have gone up this week about what's missing and the references to some of the bugs that are impacting people that aren't there, actually there is a recognition of the fact that things are in a rough state. And almost we are going all hands on deck and deploying things. And to be fair, you see that in the number of hot fixes that are coming out now. They're coming out almost daily with fixes. And in all my time playing Star Citizen, that's very rare. Usually you'd have a fix that would go to PTU and then it would go to live, and you might be waiting weeks for things to happen. The fact that we're seeing these daily drops is quite encouraging.
Mm-hmm. Were they doing that for 3.18? I actually don't remember how. I remember 3.18 came out and it was like maybe a week before they got something out. It wasn't really functional until like we got 3.18.1 or 0.2.
3.18 itself had up to Z with the minor fix version.
Right, that's right. They went through the alphabet.
Yep. They started actually patch noting with the alphabet on the end, and it got up to Z, and then they went, oh.
Okay, we quit.
But like what they're doing with what they're doing now with the central thread for all the hot fixes, because like all through last year it was really hard as someone who's in the testing chats on Spectrum, when someone says, okay, what did they fix? Now that they've got that central thread for this version just for hot fixes, and hopefully they carry on doing it, you can actually see what they're trying to do, and it's a point of reference, which is good. And you can see the rate at which they're putting them out, rather than just a message of the day on Spectrum that gets erased the next time it gets changed.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a thread, the hotfix central, so people can actually see day by day these hot fixes that are happening.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else on that point?
Do we think it's going to get better?
Yeah, I mean, what
Yeah.
do you have to say for the people who are
I don't-
wondering? People who are especially
I
new,
don't
who are like,
have.
This
I don't-
too
I don't-
shall pass.
I don't have like a technical answer. You know what I mean? Like I'm not a game developer. I don't do code. But and a lot of my stuff is just from what I can see and the information we have. But I mean, I just gotta say it's like it's better to hope than to be negative about it. Like it's better to be like, it's gonna get better, glass half full. We can ride it out together as a community
Well-
and enjoy the journey on the way. Then, I mean, but it is important to not be delusional as
Yeah.
well.
there is such thing as toxic positivity.
So I can't really answer this question too well because I think it's going to be better. I see the work they're putting in, and all I can do is hope that it pays off.
Okay.
Um,
You just hoping that
I don't see any reason why it's doomsday. Like I don't see enough evidence of saying there's no coming out of this. We're going to be okay.
Yeah, I think that's a little hyperbolic.
Sometimes I think better is a objective word because different people might have different experiences for the game.
Yeah, that's
But-
also a really rough thing. Some people are having the best time. Some people it's the
Yeah,
worst.
I've heard people talk about this, which I never had this problem, but I had some problems that other people don't have. So, so I think we have to treat this game as on a daily basis. If you enjoy it, you enjoy it, and whether eventually it's gonna be like a 1.0 completely finished game, it might not be the way. It might just keep developing. As long as people are working at CIG, we just have to go with the ride, whatever it takes us. It's a roller coaster. We go with it.
We've noticed a lot of restructuring in the company over the last year or two, and I think it's interesting because it is very much possible, and I'm not saying anything one way or another, but it's very much possible that restructuring has been part of CIG trying to handle the problems that people have been calling out for a long time, and we're not quite having seen the results of it yet. Do you guys think that maybe there's been stuff behind the scenes that could be helping with the game now more than it has in the past? Management style?
I mean, as to the restructuring, as someone who works in British corporate, in the realm, every single major company has been doing restructuring over the past year, mainly because of the budget changes, things like that. So it's partially that, I would imagine, but they're also streamlining, much like every other company, going, agile workflow. Trimming out dead weight, trimming out those middle managers, things like that, and just having project leads or project managers for the teams in the work streams. That's that's the big corporate fad on top of AI at the moment in the UK.
And CIG
Yeah,
is
I
very
think I'm-
UK based.
I'm minded to kind of agree. I mean, I don't think there is a lot of dead weight at CIG. I think clearly there are a lot of very talented people that have moved on from this role. And I think we do need to be sensitive to that. For me, this is more of a corporate decision than a gameplay decision. This is about cost base, shareholders, financials, and to be fair, a recognition of probably, given what we were seeing at the end of CitizenCon, there's probably some of the Squadron 42 stuff is done, so it probably makes sense to kind of move a lot of stuff around. I think this is just corporate stuff being corporate stuff, rather than anything that is going to massively impact gameplay. Ultimately, there are a lot of hardworking developers at CIG who will do what they are asked to do, whatever the focus is, whether that's moving things along, whether that's pushing Squadron 42, whether that's developing ships, or whether that's fixing bugs. The people will do what they're told to do. I think this is just a normal part of kind of corporate life. Is every couple of years you go through a restructure because somebody decides, hey, there's a better way to do this, and probably in 2 years' time it'll happen again.
I think what we can, but I think the playability of this game is directly linked to the management style of the people, because it's the people. The developers are managed by the managers, and it's the whole, like, people develop the game. So I don't know what happens in the company inside, but I think a major management decision can impact the game in the long run. Like, if people decide, okay, we're gonna keep developing ships without worrying about bugs, then it's going to a different direction. Or people say, okay, let's sit down, let's fix these bugs in these next 3 months. Let's not worry about features or something. So it's gonna make direct impact in the game, but we can't see it right away. But we can see it in a few patches. So I think that's directly, connected.
I think,
So I really hope they, in the beginning when I see all these bugs, I would tell my wife, oh, it's some management problem in the company, probably. So I really hope, they can be a healthy, wholesome company that really worry about the playability of the game, like make that a priority. That's a management decision. So we don't know, as gamers, content creators, we can only play the game and make content. We don't have too much influence, or maybe we do. Like, if we do something and we talk about bugs, or hold your wallet or something, to give Sage some pressure,
no money
to make
till
the
next.
game more playable. Yeah, something like that. Because
thing, man.
they can be.
People were like, no money till Pyro. Now, okay, well, no money till Pyro.
No money till Levski.
So they can be worried, and also their competence. I think the developers also have to learn together with the game. It's a very complex game. They themselves have to learn how to develop the softwares, the things to develop the game. So they have to learn themselves. So it will take time.
Mm-hmm. I think it's fairly clear to see that we've had management issues regarding the balance between Squadron and Star Citizen. That became much more clear to everybody following the game over the last year and a half or two. But we were made aware of this back in like 2021, I think, or so, when they were like, hey, we're going to basically take most of the effort and put it towards Squadron. These are things that I do believe were not agreed upon universally across the company. I think it probably caused friction. And I think that there is a contingent of people who are very much trying to push for that to change. And they've gotten more leverage now that Squadron is starting to finish up more. But I do think that part of that is what we're seeing with the way that positions are moving around with some of their messaging. I don't think they're focused on Star Citizen just yet, but I do think that it is a significant difference from times we've been at before, that not only is Squadron 42 kind of starting to wrap up, but the people who are working on it are also starting to move around. I think that's a significant change we should keep an eye on, but also hopefully something that's longer term. Not in the sense that they're never working on Squadron again, just that the company itself is more balanced between their priorities. Because Star Citizen clearly hasn't been the priority, right? Outside of like server meshing.
I think we need to accept what we don't know as well. So I was really fortunate at the end of last year after CitizenCon to go and tour the CIG offices in Manchester. And I was able to talk to a few of the developers. And a lot of them were very keen to kind of hear how did the kind of Squadron 42 demo go down? Because that was really the first time for a lot of them that some of the things they've been working on were really out there in public. And we've got so much of Squadron 42 that isn't out there in public. And I think there are a lot of developers that will be very, very proud of Squadron. I think for us as Star Citizen players, a lot of us are very interested in the Star Citizen experience and the PU experience. I think Squadron 42 is going to cater to a lot of us. I think a lot of us will enjoy it, but I think it's also going to really widen the potential player base for Star Citizen. So I think for us, for those that are really interested in Star Citizen, it'd be very interesting to say, well, I don't care about Squadron 42. I'm into the MMO and the persistent universe and things like that. And we don't have a lot of knowledge about what this game is going to offer. But I think Squadron could be incredible for those that want a more curated single player experience, potentially much more bug free than we could have in kind of what we've got on Star Citizen. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That could be an incredible experience. Imagine many hours of playing Star Citizen type gameplay without the bugs, without the issues. the potential is there. So I think it's natural to kind of have that view, but I think we also just need to be aware of the fact that we've not seen as much of Squadron. Potentially, it could be something quite appealing to a lot of people. So I'm going to reserve judgment there.
I think you're right. I mean, even just from the reactions we've seen from the gameplay, first in 2023 and then in 24, the podcast recently with Kai Zamet, what he had to say about it, he even was being very emphasis on the idea that Squadron was the one he'd probably look at because it's casual. You can experience it on your own time. You can probably experience it in different platforms or formats. It might even go to console at some point. So that game will definitely be more popular. And I would want to get that out first too. Like if that were the case, I'd want Squadron to be the first thing that releases because that's what you can use to like show people that your company needs business. But they've definitely struggled to do that.
That's 2026.
Yeah,
it's coming.
It's no
If
longer
you believe it.
All right.
More year.
Let's wrap things up today with a little more talk of expectations for the next couple of months. 4.0.1 is out. We've spent a long time now just talking about the stability and viability of the game. I think we've all come to the conclusion that they've got problems and they need to figure those problems out. They've got priorities that they need to make sure are at the top of their mind. But the game is better than it was. They just got to get it the rest of the way. I'd like to know what you guys are thinking for the next month or two. A roadmap roundup is probably coming out. We're shooting this on Saturday, so they haven't released the schedule, but it might be coming out about a day after this video comes out, if not the next week. What do you guys think they're going to do? Like, it could be really anything. 4.1, 4.0.2. Like, what do you think that we're going to see a return to the regular update schedule or what?
Everything's going to be on fire.
Yeah, at this point,
The
just
fire
don't
extinguisher.
know.
Fire features.
I hope they don't try and shoot for the stars and add loads of go like 4.1 and start adding in those features that people keep saying, well, this should have been with 4.0. We need a nice stable base to then start adding in those new bugs. So I think it'll probably be 0.2 and it'll be more fixes and hopefully, Elliot and co will get some of those nice easy missions in for the new players ready for the next refly.
Yes, exactly. I think that should be, or at least that's what I hope their focus is. We have 4.0 not completely implemented. That's their own words. This is 4.0 what they have, not what they wanted. It's not all there. They gave us a portion of it. So hopefully they can quickly get it up to speed to at least where we were prior to having these search missions, delivery missions. There's a lot of stuff missing from 4.0. So I'm guessing that's what their first goal is to complete 4.0. Hopefully. So what would that be? A 4.0.2, I think, or maybe 4.1 will be like, boom, okay, now 4.0 is officially fully in, if you can say that.
I think, 4.1 would make sense. So, actually, I'll let the rest of you answer first. Foxy Loxy, how about you?
Well, knowing CIG what CIG is, I think probably we're gonna see new features, like get people excited. If it's 4.1, we're gonna see that's not listed in the 4.0, which are the fire features, also the resource management. But I do wish, like MrKraken said, I do wish they put stability in there because that's the chairman's letter from last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really hope every single new patch, we want to see more stability in the game. If we don't, by the end of this year, we're going to bring his own letter, show him. I'm gonna go to CitizenCon. I'm gonna put letter on his table. This is your letter wrote to us last year. Yeah. So I really hope every single new patch, as they release new features, they put some like stability in it. But as the roadmap, it's gonna be features or major changes. So yeah, it's probably gonna be what it is. But I'm excited to see fire features and the resource management listed, so we know the time frame for them. At least we know. Yeah, that's what I hope.
Kraken, how about you?
I've already gone. Farrister hasn't.
Oh, Farrister, sorry. Farrister? He ran away.
I was going to say, Foxy, if you're giving out letters at CitizenCon, I've still got my screenshots from Answer the Call 2015, 2016 verse 142 release date. So if you need them, let me know.
Send to me. Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting to see what direction it goes. If you'd asked me this last week, I probably would have said, oh, they'll probably keep pushing features forward and accept that stability might fall. I'll be very interested to see if that changes now in light of the Terada, the Xylo Spectrum post this week, and of course Benoit next week.
You think that's going to make
in all
waves?
Seriousness, it could do. So in my mind, and I am horribly simplifying game dev here, so I'm so sorry to everybody that works this stuff that's going to be like, that's a big oversimplification. But in my mind, you either go hard on introducing new features, you go hard on introducing stability. Those two fight each other, right? So if you are going hard on stability, that's going to mean you've got to pause new features. And if you're going hard on new features, that's going to introduce new bugs. It'd be interesting to see how hard you go on which one, or whether you try and strike a balance between the two. My gut feel is, given the letter from the chairman at the end of last year and the aspirations for this year, I probably would have said they'd try and find a middle ground between moving the game forward and improving stability. But I'll be very interested to see if the recent challenges, like literally the Spectrum post in the last couple of days, if that does tilt the balance of that.
I think that when it comes to playability focus, we need to see how they use the experimental PTU. What they didn't do last year, which I think was because of the testing in the RMQ, that whole thing, the message queue with server meshing testing. What they didn't do was use the preview channel as much last year as I think they wanted to. I think they want to try and do something kind of like what Satisfactory does. And it's kind of like what they already do, but basically have different versions running in parallel. And it seems like they don't necessarily want to just not have new features coming in. More so they just want to have them running on that version in parallel for like longer than they do the PTU cycles normally. So I don't think they're going to not do new features. I think we'll still get new features, which inherently means probably some instability. But I do think new features are going to slow down for the sake of the game being more playable. I think the content will pick up, but I think the features themselves, the way that they're introduced, will slow down a bit. And I don't know if that's such a bad thing. I mean, it's rough because that means Star Citizen 1.0 is out further, but like, look at chat. How many times have we seen in chat today that however much money and 12 years and the game is still this unplayable? Most people know that the time spent, that whole time spent, is not indicative of the stability of the game, right? So imagine if they just put 3 months into fixing the game. All of those statements would immediately go to something else. They wouldn't disappear, but like, you can't say that anymore, right? 12 years and so much money, and oh, the game is stable now. Oh, well, there's something else. I think they want to hit that. They want to get to that point. They need to get to a point where they are starting to take away the arguments against the work that they're doing, because the work they're doing is good. It's just held down by a bunch of slog on top. So hopefully they do that this year.
I think to be fair as well, there have been points where Star Citizen has been relatively stable. So we're in a rocky place right now. But for example, before 4.0 started to go to PTU and things like that, 323, 324, I think was generally fairly stable. So to say it's been 12 years and we're not stable, I think it's been 12 years and we've been unstable, then stable, then unstable, then stable, and now we're unstable again. I kind of feel like there's a kind of cyclical element to it. And it's kind of like that adage, you got to take a step backward to take 2 steps forward. And it feels like that's very true for Star Citizen.
Yeah, very much so. And as you said, 323, and I mean, I think even as far back as 321, we've had, like all of last year, we had pretty good stability overall. And especially with the server errors coming in, the crash protection, things like that. CTD protection puts you straight back where you were.
Yeah, that's been nice.
All of those things have made it much more playable, and there was stability. But again, it's the same thing as when we first got persistence. It's a major tech stumble. So we're going to go drop down a bit again and then go back up, hopefully.
Yeah.
Not to say it will happen, but that's the hope, and that's the roller coaster that a lot of us have been riding for a while. And it's and as you said, more towards the start, those newer people who came in with all of these new gameplay features, new missions, general stability over the last year, this is their first experience of a major tech hurdle being implemented. And so the end is nigh for them. And you've got people who have just been beaten down slowly but surely over the years. And then there's the middle ground. People who realize the ambition, and we've seen Chris say things time and time again, and then someone go, "No, Chris, don't say that."
He'll be like, "No dates," and then 2 minutes later, he'll be like, "Okay, but next year."
We've had no dates, and now we're on to the "don't mention stability, Chris." That's where we are now.
Don't talk.
I don't know
the
if
game.
it helps them at all, or if it gives them the benefit of the doubt or anything. But I mean, they did make some big statements a little while back saying, "Hey guys, listen, please. The next couple of patches are going to be rough."
Yeah,
They straight up said.
Yeah, I think it was around October or September. They were basically like, it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
I think that's very balanced and very fair. However, immediately after this podcast, I'm going to go and give a 3-year-old a toothbrushing, and he knows it's going to happen, and it's not going to make it any easier for him to accept it. I think sometimes the knowledge that what's to come isn't going to be particularly pleasant doesn't necessarily help people.
Sorry, Farrister, did you just call the whole Star Citizen player base 3-year-olds?
Is that going to be the 1-minute clip and thumbname for this entire episode?
Clip. Yep. This is the clip. Everybody say hi, YouTube. No. But you're right. Like, it doesn't matter if it hurts and they tell us it's going to hurt. It still freaking hurts. And no matter what happens, the specifics will always seem like there are more specifics than you could ever let us know. So it'll always seem like it's a little bit crazier than it was prepared for.
I think if I can elaborate briefly, I think we're all 3-year-olds following Star Citizen. We are optimists. We are very positive about the future. We're hopeful. We're also all going to have temper tantrums from time to time when things aren't working as they should be. We're going to be frustrated that things aren't happening quick enough. I think we go through a whole range of emotions with this game. And I think we all go through those same emotions at different phases as well. So I think any praise of the game is probably warranted. Any criticism of the game is often warranted as well. I think we all go through that journey, don't we?
Yeah.
Now, the question is, when we turn 13, which is 10 years later, when we look back, are we going to be full of tears? Look at the hard time we've been through. Now we can enjoy this game. Will there be that day? Dude, relatively bug-free. We've been through all those development phases. Finally, 10 years later, or at that time will be 23 years later. Like, look back.
If this is how I act as a 3-year-old, imagine me at 13. Hormones crazy. I'm nuts, dude. It'd be wild. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this talk. I hope it gave people some more insight, a casual conversation about how things are going and where they're going. I think you guys are pretty on point about 4.1. I actually think 4.1 is going to look small because it will be just the stuff kind of from 4.0 that we missed, and maybe a couple extra little things. Like I think they really need to get the ladders and traversal stuff down, but I think 4.1 will be where we do start to see more of an emphasis on stability. Granted, 4.0.1 is focused on it. It's kind of a band-aid. So thank you everybody for sharing your thoughts. I'd like to go around one last time before we finish up, and you could just let folks know where they can find your own content, hear more of your thoughts, and see your wonderful faces or mustache and character falling into the sun. MrKraken, let's start with you. Where can folks find your content?
You can find me on YouTube at MrKraken or on Twitter at Real MrKraken, where I post bug workarounds for YouTube, general guides, and virtual photography in Star Citizen, the prettiest demo I've ever seen.
Indeed. Astro Mani?
Yes. So you could find me on YouTube, Astro Mani, or on Twitch, Astro Mani. I think the Twitch one has an underscore. But yes, I make videos on YouTube. I stream on both Twitch and YouTube. I do both of those basically 5 days a week. And then Saturday and Sundays are kind of like, well, if I'm doing nothing and I'm playing Star Citizen, here I am. But I'm on the game a lot. And I'm streaming, like I said, 5 days a week. In fact, I will be streaming here after the show.
Nice.
Probably a good half hour to give me some time to set up and reflect and things like that. But I'll be streaming after the show here on both YouTube and Twitch.
Awesome. Captain Foxy Loxy, how about yourself?
You can find me by calling Captain Fox Loxy 3 times, and I will appear. I only have a YouTube channel right now, so you can find me there.
Okay. What is that?
It's YouTube Captain. I think just Captain Foxy Loxy _ Captain Foxy Loxy.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And Farrister, how about yourself?
Kind of inspired by Foxy Loxy's sassy answer. So I guess you can find me in Stanton and never in Pyro. you can find me on YouTube at Farrister, or you can find me on Reddit being accused of not being a true salvager because I don't use gimbals.
Hey, me either, buddy.
Wait,
I had people accuse me of not using gimbals as well.
You got accused of not being a true salvager because you don't use gimbals?
It's weird using gimbals on sticks, so
No
Honestly,
gimbals.
sometimes the gimbal's annoying because I move my mouse just a little bit and it like jerks over for some reason in weird directions. I don't know.
Fixed is a valid choice, and I'll die on this hill.
As a real salvager, I'm saying nothing.
There's a good shout out to anybody who has been watching this podcast until the end on YouTube. Make sure to comment below. Let me know, is Farrister a real salvager or not? Are gimbals the way? Or is it just a hand holding? Sick, disgusting. No, it's a joy to be able to see how many different ways people play the game and how many different ways you can just be wrong about how you do it. Love that. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us live if you are. I will actually now be jumping into the game with you all if you're here with me live, so you can stay tuned for like 2 minutes. We're going to jump into 4.0.1 live and put everything that we just talked about to the test. Now, I know 4.0.1 live is not as good as the hotfix, but I figured let's get the full story. We're going to jump in, run a couple missions, see how the game runs, and actually see if it's an unplayable mess that never works or if it's a kind of broken game with some good parts. But I'd like to thank you all again for joining us for the Citizen Central podcast. This one's every month. Roundtable talks, big topics. And if you want to join our weekly podcast launch sequence, we always have a new guest on that talking about some of the littler things that are going on. This week, we'll be talking about lore and the new factions. But that's it for this one. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thanks for watching. Like I said, I'm going to send you all over, or actually, I'm going to keep you right here. and I'll be back with some gameplay in a couple minutes. Thanks, everybody. See you in the next one.